Hello, my friends. Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works Workshop with another edition, number 38 of Shop Talk. And I do think we've got a really good Shop Talk lined up for you this morning. Before we get started, let me introduce Michael Landreth. Michael, step over here for just a second and just say hi.
How you doing? Hi.
And Michael is here staying at the rental retreat, and he brought how many instruments?
Four.
Four instruments, and I worked on a Fender mandolin yesterday. I started working a little bit on a, what do you call that?
Gibson Les Paul Jr.
Les Paul Jr. And Caleb took care of a 28?
Yes, Martin D28.
Martin D28. Is that an HD28 or just
no,
a D28?
Unfortunately not. It'd be nice for us.
Yeah. D28 to D28, you know. But anyway, we've got one more to go, and I think that's a banjo, right?
Yes.
The 5-string galvanized mechanical gadget. We'll see if we can make that one work too. Well, I think we've got a pretty neat shop talk lined up for you. Last week, I forgot to follow my outline. Got on my rants, you know how it is, and I've left out several things, so we're going to cover those this morning too. And I got a thing or two on the bench here to kind of show you, and I'm going to get a little bit of a rant going on epoxy and how much I just love it. If you believe that, I got some ground down in the Okeechobee I want to sell you. And guess what? Tomorrow is Liam's birthday, and he's going to be 13 years old. So happy birthday, Liam! I've got a media room video that I wanted to show you, and I've been working on my house up there over 20 years ago. I mean, we bought the house in 1998, so I guess it's 23 years. I pretty much said from day one I was going to turn this into a home theater. Well, 23 years later, I mean, why get in a hurry, you know? So take a look at this video and it'll kind of bring you up to date about where we're at right now. Thought I'd give you a little update on the status of my media room. Keep in mind, this is an old log cabin that was built back in the 1930s. And it was the original part of the house. Then they added onto the house, added another house on that end, another house on that end, then roofed over all three houses. It's just a crazy mess. And this part, being the oldest, was in the worst shape. The logs had deteriorated quite a bit. So for the most part, we stripped the bark off the logs, because that should have been done originally, but it wasn't. They left the bark on the logs, as you can probably see on this side. This side was still in pretty good shape. You can see there's a little bark missing here, but overall this was pretty good shape. So to avoid a bigger mess, we just left this wall like it is and coated it with some white chinking to match the rest of the chinking that we just did. So anyway, all of this room is pretty much finished. We've got the doors in now, and of course you can see my new 85-inch large screen TV. Probably doesn't look that big on video because this room is fairly good size. The room is 18.5 feet long, and the camera is almost at the very back. It's a couple of feet shy of the back of the room. And it's about 12.5 feet wide, so it's not real wide, but it's a good sized room, and it's a neat room, and really not much else you could do with it. I mean, you could make it a bedroom, but we really don't need an extra bedroom. So it's kind of nice having it as a theater room. This door right here that you can see goes to a bathroom right there. So it's real convenient for, having a bathroom real close, and then there's some storage in this room here. What my intention is to make this also my recording studio, and over here in this corner I plan to put my console, for my mixer and everything for my recording. My digital workstation basically is what it is. And we're going to have surround sound in here and all of that. But I just wanted to give you a quick update of the progress of the room. It looks pretty good. I mean, considering what we started with, it was pretty bad. It really was. The floors are really bad yet. And I bought carpet squares that have padding on the back. And then I'm also going to put down, I don't know if you can see it in the very corner there, there's some rolls of padding that I'm going to lay down first that have a plastic backing on them. And then I'm going to stick the carpet to that. At least that's my goal. That'll give it an extra little bit of pad, hopefully make the concrete floor a little warmer and also a little better for the sound too. It's a little bit noisy for a studio, but I think we can do things to improve that too. So it is what it is, as I say. This is what we've got to work with, and that's what we're using. So thought I'd give you a look at our finished recording studio room. It doesn't look like that from this angle, probably. And you'd kind of be right. There's quite a bit of room here between where the camera is at and that couch. There's enough room to get a couple of people in here with chairs and for recording. And we can always move those chairs back and get them out of the way. I'm going to call this new studio the Rosa Stringworks Antler Studio. You can kind of get an idea of what the room looks like from this end. And now I'll get the camera and move it to the other end of the room and shoot back this way. And so here's a look at the room from the other direction. And you can kind of see, there's the big screen TV. That's an 85-inch TV. So it doesn't look very big in the video, I'm sure, but that'll give you some idea how big it is. So anyway, the only update since that is I have now got the surround sound in. I've got the AV receiver in there and the surround sound with it's a 7.2 surround sound, which if you don't know what that means, it means like 7 mains or 7 speakers basically, and then 2 subwoofers it can handle. And it can handle a variety of different inputs, like it can handle the television, and it can handle, my recording studio, I think, as well. So anyway, and that's to be seen because I haven't put the recording studio in there yet. That'll be my next project, hopefully this weekend. And I'll show you another update on that once I get all that going. And then, of course, we're planning, once we get Starlink, if we ever get it, to do some live concerts, and we'll probably do some live concerts from that room. So, all that to say, I have been busy in the evenings. And matter of fact, I worked on it all last evening, putting in that surround sound system. It took all evening to get that thing going right. And anyway, the next thing after that is I wanted to mention again that we will be back in Mountain View, Arkansas, October 14th through 17th. If you can be in the area and you want to come in and jam with us, we'll be down there. I've mentioned before that we spend most of our time either under the gazebos that they have, which is at one corner of the courthouse, or we're on the front porch of the Wildflower Bed and Breakfast, and they have a large front porch, and that's on the other corner of the courthouse square. So you can find us at one of those two places most of the time between the 14th and the 17th of October. If you're in the area, please stop in and do some jamming with us. This next thing, boy, you just when you thought it was safe, Caleb, we found out just the other day in a video he has a twin. So many people commented on his twin, and yeah, I didn't even know he had a twin, but till I saw that video myself. But now, believe it or not, he's got a triplet. Take a look at this. Can you believe it? Here's his other brother. It's crazy. We're just growing Caleb's here and there, everywhere. Actually, believe it or not, I already mentioned it would be Liam's birthday tomorrow, and this is Liam's uncle. And honestly, I've already forgotten his name. I should have remembered his name. I apologize, but it is Liam's uncle. And I thought that was pretty good. They do look similar, mostly the hair and the bandana, I guess, but you know, and they're both holding a similar type of guitar too, which I thought was kind of cool. Okay, well, people have more fun than anybody. Let's see. The next thing, there's been a couple of comments, especially since that, I think the most recent video about the why I don't work on classical guitars and why I don't work on, and I'll add why I don't work on ovations also. And I guess here's the best analogy I can give you why I don't really want to work on classical guitars. And that is, you know, a heart surgeon typically doesn't work on a brain, you know, and a brain surgeon typically doesn't work on a heart, you know. So it's kind of that way. And, you know, you think, well, a guitar is a guitar, an acoustic. No, they're not exactly the same. Classical guitars are built quite a bit different than the acoustic guitars that I'm familiar with and that I work on. Their neck, especially in the neck area, especially in the bracing and all of that. Yeah, I could get by and fix it. There's no question I could fix one. But the point is that it's not my specialty, and I don't know a lot about them. I don't play classical, so it's, you know, when you're not an expert at something, you ought to just realize that and just not do it. And so I really don't want to work on classical instruments. So that I've kind of made that a rule for the last year and a half, that I'm just not accepting any more classical guitars. So that one that you saw in the most recent video was a family friend, and you know how that is. That's a little different. So that's why it was here. Okay, and then I added ovations in on that, and the reason, again, it's kind of the same analogy. It's that ovations are built so different than your standard acoustic guitar. And this is going to lead me into my epoxy rant. They're put together with epoxy, and yeah, that's about the only thing that kind of sticks those kinds of materials together, you know. And so I'm going to go ahead and just jump on my epoxy rant, and my epoxy rant was inspired by Michael Landreth here yesterday, because we had two incidences of epoxy. I set up his Fender mandolin, which turned out, I think, pretty nice. It looks good. It actually sounds really good. And we took the finish off the neck on that. And it turns out that when you don't know what you don't know. And so I took the scraper and hit the neck, and I went, oh, I wish I wouldn't have done that, because it was epoxy. It was an epoxy finish, or epoxy resin. Prior to that, though, I had already commented. I said, you know, I'm just not getting the sound out of this that I thought I would get. Why? Well, it's coated with epoxy. You know, people all the time are on my case like, why don't you just use epoxy filler? They've got, you know, Z-epoxy will fill those pores. Yeah, but it also kills the sound, you know. Epoxy is... It fills things great. That's the only thing I use it for on an acoustic instrument. The only thing I use epoxy for is to fill a big void or a big hole. In other words, at the end of my truss rods, there's usually a little cavity right there, and I'll just fill it with epoxy because it fills it quickly, and it takes the shape of the hole, and it does a good job on filling. It's not worth a hoot, in my opinion, for glue. It is not a glue. It shouldn't be used as a glue. People that glue bridges on with epoxy, they always come loose. I don't care. You know, eventually they'll come loose. You know, it might take 5 years, but they will come loose if you glue them with epoxy. And I use the word very loosely when I say glue. I think it'd be better if I say if you just stick them together with epoxy, because it's really not glue. Yeah, it sticks, but only for a while, and it's got no flex to it whatsoever, no flex at all. It's and let me give you another analogy here, or maybe just a mental picture, if you will. And that is, like, I know you wouldn't do this, but let's say you were going to drive a nail through a mandolin top. And the one is finished with would you mind catching that air conditioning, please? Thank you. I'm turning the fan off again, sorry. But let's say you drove a nail through the top on a mandolin that had a nitrocellulose lacquer finish. That nail is just pretty much just going to go straight through. You're going to get just a tiny bit of chipping right around the finish, and it's just pretty much going to go straight through. Now you try to drive that same nail through the finish on that fender mandolin that we worked on yesterday, and with that epoxy resin finish. I guarantee you, you're going to have trouble, first of all, getting the nail to even start through the finish. Number one, it's going to be really hard. Number two, it's going to be so hard that when you force it through, it's going to crack. It's going to make a crack. Instead of a hole, it's going to make a crack in that top. That's the difference in epoxy and the nitrocellulose lacquer. It's too hard. It's so crazy hard brittle that it doesn't vibrate. And that's why it comes loose when you use it as to fix a bridge on a guitar. You know, I get ovations constantly coming in here. I used to. I quit taking ovations. I'm just tired of dealing with them. That were glued together with epoxy, and they're coming apart all the time. Especially the bridges. They pull right off. Let me think here. So, you know, I guess the bottom line is, let me just back up the truck a little bit and say that I don't have a problem with using epoxies for the finish on an electrical solid body type guitar, but if you're going to use it on an acoustic, you're making a mistake. You should not use epoxy finishes on an acoustic instrument if you want it to sound good. Sorry, you know, I know lots of companies do it, but it's just not a good idea. And I would never, absolutely never use it to glue something together. Now, here's one more example of the gluing together thing. This, do you remember the old Get Smart TV series back in the 60s, I think it was? Or have you seen the reruns for those of you who are younger? And Maxwell Smart, he was famous for saying, "Missed it by that much." He's the guy that started that. Missed it by that much. Well, that's the way this repair was on this Les Paul Jr. here. He missed it by that much. He almost did a good job. And, you know, he put this piece of aluminum on here, as you can see, to fix the neck brake. This big. And he formed it fairly well, and what he couldn't form, he filled with epoxy, and he glued this on with epoxy. Then he put a couple of metal screws in here too. Like I said, almost did it right. I mean, what he did pretty well. It's just shouldn't have been done, really, is the bottom line. But what he did pretty well. Okay, so he put the metal fasteners in there, had it glued on with epoxy. My point about that is, you notice that it's off of here, and it didn't tear anything up or break anything when it came off of here. So how did I get it off? I just took this punch right here, tapped it right there with my little hammer, just tapped it. I think I tapped it twice with this punch, and it just popped this thing right off. That ought to tell you that epoxy is not glue. It doesn't stick anything to anything. It just kind of holds it in place for a little while. And that's the bottom line with epoxy. And I knew that when I looked at it, and I went, well, he's got that glued on with epoxy, so I just tapped it and it popped right off. Now, on the other side of the coin, it is hard to glue something to finish, you know, and that's what he was doing. He's gluing it to the finish. So even a regular glue would have trouble with that, I got to be honest. But epoxy's that way with pretty much anything. You glue two things together and you can pop them apart later.
That was not done by me, by the way.
No, it was not done by Michael. It was not done by Michael. But anyway, my point is, you know, epoxy just has no place on an acoustic instrument. Do yourself a favor and resist the urge to use it. sorry, but that's the way I feel about it, and I can tell you right now, that opinion ain't going to change. I've seen way too many things with epoxy that have caused problems on acoustic instruments. Like I said, on an electric instrument and using it for a finish, if you want a real tough finish, I got no problem with that. If it's a hard, solid body electric guitar, no problem at all. It would be a great finish for that. But if you want your instrument to vibrate, you're making a big mistake. Okay, I'm off the soapbox. Sorry that rant took so long, but I think it was worth saying, and I think you need to hear it. I got another video here. I made a new invention. And you know, some of you know, and it's been a long time since the last video I did on the horse trailer. Because I just put it aside. I just didn't have time to work on it. And I finally started working on it again, and I'm going to get the thing going here and get it working so my wife can use it. And before I get to the video, I just want to say thank you to Toby. Looks like he's made some contributions, and I appreciate that very much. Looks like he's made a couple, actually. So let's take a look at my invention on the horse trailer here. I think you'll get a kick out of this. As a lot of folks know, I've been working on this trailer, repairing it, building it back. We're getting close to doing the final touches. Final touches mean floor, inside walls, things like that, just to finish it out. But I made a prototype of something here that I wanted to show off. I think it's pretty cool. Now, it's only tack welded in place. It's not really solid yet. It might even fail on this video and fall. So that's because I just barely have it tack welded in place to make sure that it was going to work before I weld it up firmly. But here we go. Obviously the doors aren't working yet, but you can see the saddle there. And here's what I built. So you can pull this out like so. And I don't know if you can see it very well, but basically I can pull the saddle right out on this rail. In other words, it's got an extension arm. Can you see the arm there? And then I can push it right back in place like this. And all I have to do is fold the stirrups in and the little straps in. And then you can see it's in there. And then I can just push this, bingo. So, you know, with a heavy saddle like she has, that'll make it a lot easier to get the saddle in and out. So, there you go. This is what it looks like in the raw. You basically just pull it out like so. I know I'm not filming this very well, but I've only got two hands and the camera's a little close. And then you just push it right back in like so. And it goes in and folds over out of the way. And then you can just close the door. Pretty cool. I'll get better film of it down the road. And so the moment you say that you invented something, somebody's going to say, well, I've already seen that. Somebody else has already got it. Well, I can tell you for sure, I haven't seen it like that. I have definitely seen slide outs where you slide saddles out and things like that. But most of those are friction based, and they're actually two big angles, one sitting on top of the other, and the saddle sits on top of the upper angle, if you will, and you pull it out, and it's one angle is sliding on top of the other, you know, and it's kind of hard to pull them out, kind of hard to push them back in. You could put rollers on those kinds of things too, you know, and make it a lot easier. But that thing there, believe it or not, those hinges are rated at 1,000 pounds each, so I used 2 hinges, and they also have bearings in those hinges. Those aren't just your standard like door hinge. These are specially made hinges, and they have bearings in them, which is really cool. So they really can hold a lot of weight, and so I just made I guess you call it a reticulated arm or something like that. I'm not sure if I said the right word there, but you know what I'm saying. It's just an arm and elbow that bends and moves. And it looks like we're getting our spam again in the comments. Isn't that wonderful? Yeah. You got to be a big channel to get spammed, you know. I'm taking it as a compliment. So anyway, I hope you get a little kick out of seeing some behind the scenes things there on the horse trailer. on my list here, I've got, I want to mention again that I still have a couple of 5X size shirts in stock. They're the ones with my logo on, not this one here, but just the big logo and that kind of a, I don't know what color it is, sand colored shirt, I guess is the best way to explain it. That's what it looks like to me anyway. So I've got a couple of those in stock. I also have a couple of 2X jersey, made by Jerseys, which is a different brand. So it's not the real soft stuff, but I'll sell those for $1 off if somebody wants to email me and get those. Those are 2X. I just have a couple of those also. The next thing here is I have a comment that was sent to me this week, and I thought it's from my customer and friend now, Steve Norman. He's down in Kentucky, so take a look at this comment. Steve Norman here from Kentucky. Just to let you know, I'm not the best mandolin player in Kentucky, but I do have the best sounding mandolin in Kentucky. Thanks again. Steve has sent me a number of texts about how much he likes his mandolin, and I'm proud that he likes it. Steve's a horseshoer. He shoes the Kentucky Derby type horses, you know, and so he works on the upper echelon of horses, if you will. And apparently must be pretty good at it. Well, let's see here. Are we running low? Start getting your questions ready, and be sure that you start your question with a couple of question marks so I can find them, because they scroll up the screen pretty fast, and I'm a slow reader to boot. So anyway, I wanted to tell you that the website, in terms of the training downloads and all that, is, as far as I can tell, it's working well now. I haven't had any more complaints about the downloads. If you purchased it and couldn't get it to work, be sure to let me know, and I will get you a download one way or the other. The status of the Last Hurrah guitar actually has changed a little bit. Not very much, but we're getting there. So, there will be videos coming on this down the road, but I do have one piece of binding in, and I don't know, I'm sure the camera won't pick it up, but it's curly maple binding, and it's going to be beautiful. It really will. It's going to really pop, because when you wet it down, it really pops. And it's a decorative binding. It's got some trim under it also, and it's laminated on the top as well, as you can probably see there. So I've got one piece in. I've got all of the slots cut. So, and my intention is to take that binding then and to 45 it right here and come around, and 45 it right here and come around. So it's going to look a little different than your average binding. It's going to look pretty cool, I think. So that's the status of the Last Hurrah guitar. And let's see, what else do I have here? I think that's it. I think we've got it covered. So I'm ready to take your questions if you have any. If you're still awake out there, maybe I've bored you to tears and you're falling asleep. Here's my buddy, well, let's see. We got a couple of questions here I see now. How about, we'll start with Jeff Camp. I think he's the top one that I see. Can I put Renaissance wax over like Martin spray polish? Well, let me say this about that, Jeff. I don't like Martin spray polish. I really don't. I wouldn't have any problem putting the Renaissance wax over the top of it, but I wouldn't use any liquid spray polishes on your instrument. And I say that with some reservation. I don't think they cause a problem on the actual finish, but they will definitely, and I say this in giant bold letters, they will definitely cause you trouble on your pickguard down the road. Do not let those liquid spray polishes get on your pickguards. I'm telling you, over time, that will shrink your pickguard. It will cause problems. It may take a while, but it will cause problems. And I can't prove that, but I know it for a fact. Just something I know, because I've seen it. And in fact, I did it once. A guy asked me, he says, did you put something on my pickguard? Because he said, it's been 2 months now, and all of a sudden my pickguard's starting to shrivel up. And sure enough, that was back when I didn't know any better, and I used those spray polishes on his pickguard. And since then, I've seen it tons and tons and tons of times. And whenever I investigate, sure enough, that's at the root of the problem. So I can't prove it, but I know it. Yeah, and even with the, by the way, even with the Renaissance wax, I wouldn't put that on your pickguard either. But you can control that because you're doing it with your hand, So anyway, there's that. Doug Santaniello. I never know how to say his name. I'm sorry, Doug. Santaniello. He says, "Hey Jerry, I have lacquer top on a acoustic guitar that's badly checked due to the weather issues. Doesn't hurt to just resand it and respray it. Clear gloss lacquer." Yeah, you can do that, Doug. My theory on that is humidity. Humidity causes those lacquer finishes to expand and they crack. Lacquer, at first lacquer is pretty flexible for the first year or so. But the more it dries, the harder it gets, the more it cracks. And it doesn't matter how well you do, that wood's going to expand from moisture. And that's why I say don't humidify your instruments, because it's going to expand the wood. It's just going to cause your lacquer to crack for sure. But anyway, that's what I say the cracking is from moisture expansion more than anything else. And then the only problem you'll run into, Doug, is what's in those cracks. Seriously, if you've been waxing it and the wax gets down in those cracks, good luck filling it with nitrocellulose lacquer finish. It's going to run away from those cracks just like, I can't even explain it. You'll actually see it just separate. It's just like Moses parting the sea. It's going to separate, and you're going to see it. It's going to look just like a river right down the top, right where that crack is. So if that's assuming there's waxes and things in there. Even if there is no waxes, it will still do that to some degree. Lacquer just doesn't like holes and cracks. It seriously doesn't like them. So if you had some way of filling those cracks first, you'd be better off. And I don't know what that way would be other than to maybe fill it with CA glue or something. But man, usually that creates more problems than it's worth. So I'm not a finish expert. I'm just telling you what I've seen and what I've done. And I can tell you for sure you're in for that. That's going to happen. And I can tell you that when black and white certainty. It will happen. And especially if there's wax in there. It'll be really bad if there's wax in there. Bruce Robinson, I've got the best sounding Kentucky mandolin. He doesn't have the best sounding mandolin in Kentucky, but he has the best sounding Kentucky mandolin. Yeah, Bruce, if you've watched that series, and Bruce would have to tell you the number because I can't remember. I guess 700 videos out there. But we put a top on Bruce's Kentucky mandolin. That's how Bruce and I got to know one another. And in fact, Bruce will be down there in October with us at Mountain View. Matter of fact, it's Bruce's idea. He's the one that got this one going in October. So I'm joining him, actually. And anyway, we did put a new top on his Kentucky mandolin, and then later we straightened the neck or the fingerboard on it. It had a the neck was put in the body at an angle, and so anyway, we straightened that up. So there's a couple of videos on his Kentucky mandolin. If you just search on RSW Kentucky mandolin, you'll probably find it. You might even throw the word top in there too, and you'll find it, I'm sure. And Bruce can post it in the comments here if he knows the number. Let's see. A lot of questions here all of a sudden. Let me find them. Are you finding that top quality wood is getting harder to come by? No, not really. I haven't. Not yet anyway. No, David, I've got a good supplier in Fulton, Missouri, who supplies the tops to Martin, Taylor, Gibson, everything. And I've known him since he was a conservation agent and he was doing the wood on the side, and I still go to his place and hand select my wood. And he's got a nice place, and he doesn't give me any discount. I paid dearly for it, but I've been buying it from him for, gee whiz, it's getting close to 40 years, I guess. Anyway, so I'm not having too much trouble. Now that's the spruce. Now the back and sides, since I use Padauk, I haven't had a whole lot of trouble finding it, but because I keep talking about using Padauk and people are using it more and more all the time, that may become an issue too. So at least I haven't run into it yet. Paul Akers, how do you remove CA glue from a crack in the guitar top from a previous fix? It didn't close, it was botched. Well, Paul, I don't know. Every case is unique, so it's hard to give you a black and white answer on that. But let me just say this as one black and white statement, and that is the bad news is CA glue doesn't hold real well the first time you use it. The good news is it holds a lot better the second time. CA glue sticks better to itself than it sticks to anything else. So like if you put CA glue in something and it breaks, try it again, because usually the second time it'll hold. So since you have a botched repair there and it didn't close up properly or whatever, if you can get it to close now and still put CA glue in there and hold it, clamp it, and let it stay clamped for a good long time, it'll probably hold this time. So that's the first thing I would suggest, would be to try the CA glue again, if you can do that. Now, if it's so botched that it looks horrible, well, then good luck with that. For me, to get it out of there, for the most part, I scrape everything. Now, getting it down in a crack would be hard, difficult at best. So I don't know that I have a good answer for you, Paul, on that one. But I typically scrape everything. Now this is extreme, Paul, but it could be done, and I've done it, and that is that if it's really a bad mess, you can sometimes cut right straight down your grain line and insert a new piece of wood in that area, matching the grain as best you can, and fix it that way by actually putting in a different piece of wood. It may be the best solution if you're having trouble getting rid of the CA glue. So that's the best I got for you right now without really seeing it. What is the difference between glue adhesive and cement? Well, I'm not the answer on that one, I don't think. I'm not a chemist exactly. Yeah. So I don't know that I can answer that for sure. All I can really answer on anything like that is just my own personal experience, and I really don't know that much about adhesives, glues, cements. I don't even know that much about epoxies and those different things. All I can tell you is what I see, and what I see consistently, time and time again, and that's pretty much all I ever tell you about it. It's just stuff I know for sure, not stuff that I'm guessing at. So I can't really comment on that one. Brian Kintz, it looks like. I am restoring a very old flat top mandolin. Would there be a downside to cutting and using a bone bridge on it? Would there be a downside? No, you'd probably be fine. What you can, Brian, I've done similar things. What you can do a lot of times is, most of those flat top mandolins had a solid bridge. And what you can do is you can make yourself a solid bridge and top it with a piece of antler or a piece of bone. That looks good and it sounds good too. It helps transfer the sound really well. So that would be my suggestion, would be to make it a wooden bridge, but yet top it with a piece of bone or antler. I don't think I'd make the whole thing out of bone or antler, but every case is unique, so you can do what you want there. But that's the way I think I would start it, or try it anyway. Happy birthday to Liam from Olav. Yeah, very good. Matt Fields, especially in old. So yeah. I think you're talking about putting those chemicals on those old celluloid pickguards. Yeah, you don't want to do that either, for sure. Yeah, chemicals and plastic are just not a good combination, period. Whoever thought spray polishes was a real good idea was just making a lot of money, that's all they were trying to do. They weren't thinking that all the way through. Let's see. So use Renaissance wax instead all finishes. Yeah, pretty much Renaissance wax, or and I use Renaissance wax now because I find it to be very easy to remove and to take off and all that. But honestly, at least on a nitrocellulose lacquer, and I would even say on one of those epoxy finished instruments, it wouldn't matter. You could use car polish too. You can use car wax. Now, when I say polish, there's a difference between polish and wax. The old car paste waxes work great on nitrocellulose lacquer. The only negative you run in there is they're very hard to remove, very hard to get off. So boy, you don't want to do a very big area, just a small area and take it right back off. I mean, don't let it set for 5 minutes. Put it on, take it off, put it on, take it off. And the old car wax polishes really work well to help your sound. And you think, how could it possibly help your sound? It crisps up the finish is what it does. And it makes that finish good, and I don't know, it just works. I actually did that to a guitar. All I did to this D35 guitar was clean it up and use car paste wax on it. And I'm not exaggerating, I'm not lying, I'm not stretching the story one little bit. The man started crying when he heard it. I mean, he had tears running down his cheeks. He's going, I haven't heard it sound anywhere near that good since my dad was alive. And, because it seriously was the worst sounding D35 Martin guitar I ever heard in my life. And you've heard me talk about this before. And most of the problem was just that it was filthy. I mean, it was filthy. It just had creep and crud all over it. It was just coated in just nasty stuff. And it was just full of cat hair. It was just a mess. So all I did was clean it up. And then I polished it and waxed it with that, because I knew that would really firm up that finish and make it sound good. And it sounded like $1 million when I got done. It went from the worst sounding D35 I ever heard in my life to at least one of the best. So there's that. That wax is a good thing. It really is. It does help your sound. And honestly, I think the old car paste waxes do that better than Renaissance wax does. Renaissance wax is good, but I don't think it helps the sound as much as the old car paste waxes. But the car paste waxes are super hard to get off. Now, when I say the paste waxes, I don't mean those mixed up, gooey, junky wax, soft polish waxes. I'm talking about the old paste waxes. And another one that works good is Minwax Furniture Paste Wax. Works really good. Hard to get off, and don't do a big area, but it works really good on your sound. Okay, moving on. What glue do you use for plastic pickguard to nitro finish? I don't really use a glue there for the most part. In fact, I don't like to see people use glues to glue pickguards to tops on nitrocellulose. I like to see the two-way tape. You got to have it really clean. It's best if you clean it with maybe alcohol first or something like that. Something that won't hurt the finish. Wipe down that specific area with like a denatured alcohol, or even rubbing alcohol, I think would be fine even. But clean it really good with alcohol first, and then use your two-way tape. And you can get the two-way tape from, Stuart McDonald if you don't know any place else to get it. But their tape is pretty good. It's thin, and it works really well to put pick guards down. Let's see. I've got a Martin D20 in very bad condition. Is it worth restoring? It's worth it if it's worth it to you. That's my standard answer. I hate to sound smug about that, but that's the truth. It's worth it if it's worth it to you. Most Martins are worth it. I don't know D20s too much. I don't really know anything about D20s, to be perfectly honest with you. Like I told you before, I'm not a model expert. I'm an expert on the instrument that's sitting on my bench right there at that time. and it goes in one ear and out the other, because I don't remember models and things like that. It's just, there's too much. And thousands upon thousands of instruments over 40 years. I mean, people come all the time. I just think it's so funny. They'll come in 7 years later and they go, yeah, I brought you that, that Semenoff mandolin, and, do you remember working on it? No. Sorry, I don't remember it. I don't remember it 2 weeks ago, let alone 7 years ago. Let's see. What is a good surface protection for a wood instrument at the humid Gulf Coast? Well, again, I try to keep it as much out of the humidity as possible. That's the first thing. Keep it in an air-conditioned house, kind of where you like to be, is kind of my rule of thumb. And then secondly, once it's kind of acclimated to that, then the Renaissance wax is perfectly fine for that. And do not humidify it especially if you're in a humid area. You just are asking for trouble. Can you use naphtha to clean out wax before using lacquer? Well, maybe. I fall short of saying yes on a lot of these things, because I'm not a big fan of cleaning things with naphtha, because it leaves a little bit of a residue or a little bit of film. I don't know. I prefer to use, if I'm going to use something to clean something, I prefer to use like alcohol for the most part on finishes. If I'm cleaning something that's not finished, then I prefer to use something like acetone or something like that. But acetone will eat up your finish, so you got to be really careful with stuff like that. But you might do okay with naphtha on the wax. I'm not really sure. You'd almost have to experiment on that yourself. I really haven't tried that. You're right. I'm taking the D28 to Martin to replace pickguard. Rosette is pulling up too. Pickguard. Yeah, it happens. I'm not kidding you. And lots of certain vintage Martins seem to do it worse than others. And it's probably because the plastic they used, shrunk even more so than most plastics. And then when you add the chemical to it, it just goes nuts, and it just shrinks up to nothing. I've seen them just curl. I've seen them curl like a potato chip. In fact, I've seen that quite a bit. Have you ever used walnut oil on a fretboard? No, I haven't. I would imagine it would be fine, though. Almost any kind of oil, including motor oil, is perfectly fine for your fretboard. I know that's going to really fly in the face of most people, but seriously, I can actually show you in Gibson and Martin literature where they say go ahead and use 3-in-1 oil. I mean, they actually say 3-in-1 oil. So oil is oil is oil, and it works pretty good. Yeah, you really won't hurt anything as long as you wipe it back off, So I'm sure walnut oil would be fine. I just never have used it. Bruce says the first episode on the Kentucky was 109 and the 177 on fixing the neck. So if you're looking so it's quite a while ago. Bruce, I've known you a lot longer than I thought. That was a long time ago. 109 and 177. I apologize in advance. What is the best way to clean an unfinished spruce top? Unfinished spruce top. The best way to clean it would be with sandpaper. I probably sounds silly, but that's the truth. That's the way I would clean it, would be with sandpaper. And I would use like a 220. And if you have a choice, I'd get that 3M 220 Pro, whatever that stuff is, that, boy, it does not build up. It works wonderful. Huge, huge improvement on sandpaper with that stuff. Let's see here. We've got about 10 more minutes, so let's see what we can come up with. Are you needing something? No. I see Caleb over there. He's kind of standing there like, you know, deer in the headlights, wondering. I'm thinking maybe he's waiting for me to get off of here so he can work. How much does YouTube pay you when you make a video? Do they pay per hour, per view, or what? Well, I don't mind telling you what I know about that, but I'm not too sure anybody really understands that whole algorithm thing. But they do pay for the commercials. That's why my videos are monetized. You have to understand the hours, and you really can't understand it until you see how long it takes to produce these videos. I mean, until you do it one time, then you'll go, oh, I get it now. I can do a job and film it, and it'll be a 1-hour job. And I guarantee you it'll take you a minimum of 3 hours, if not 4 to 6 hours, to produce that video. And you know, I know you think I'm exaggerating. All I can tell you is just try it, see what you think after you try it. And so that's the reason I monetize my videos to begin with, just so you understand. And then to try to answer your question about how they pay, the truth is, it's like pennies. I mean, like almost nothing. And that's why it's taken me so long for it to start to pay. You know, I've got 700 videos out there. Some months I get 10 million minutes of view time a month. Well, now the ads are finally starting to pay off. You know, and it's finally starting to make some decent money. And I'm not, you know, I'm not going to disclose what I'm making, but on the other hand, you know, I feel like I've earned every red penny of it, and I really believe that. Anyway, I'm not getting rich by any stretch of anybody's imagination, but I'm starting to make a decent amount of money with it. I mean, you know, when I say decent amount of money, it would be like you going to your job, you make a decent wage for what you're doing, you know, and I'm kind of that way right now with this. Let's see. And I don't know how much they pay per ad or whatever. I really don't. But it's pennies. It truly is just pennies, you know, and maybe not even a whole penny per ad. It takes a lot of them to start adding up. It really does. But those guys that have the huge channels, you know, 1 million subscribers, and you know, it's a totally different ballgame. They are making big bucks, let me tell you. Because as little as I am, and it's starting to actually make a decent wage, can you imagine what they're doing? They're hundreds of times bigger than me, you know. Oh, it's crazy. They're making big bucks. They're making more in 1 month than I made a whole year working for Southwestern Bell when I worked there. How much does you... Okay, well, no, that's it. That's the last question I see, unless there's something here. No, here we go. It just didn't... It wouldn't scroll there for a while. It got stuck on me. Let me go back up and see if I can figure out where I was. Wow. I'm not sure where that was. I'm getting close to finding it, I think. Okay, yeah, I found it. All right, so it looks like Toby made another contribution. I'm beginning to wonder, is Toby real, or is this because he's made a lot of contributions, and I really appreciate it. Trust me, but I'm beginning to wonder, is that some sort of a spam thing? But thank you, Toby. I really appreciate it. Can I use Rift cut 45-degree grain cherry for sides? Yes, you could. Yeah, you could. You could even use slab sawn. For your back and sides, it's not nearly as critical as the top. The top absolutely must be quarter sawn, and the more vertical, the better. The back sides, all that, it's far less critical. I personally prefer it to be quarter sawn, but it's far less critical. Let's see here, question marks. Is it true that using olive oil on the fretboard can make it disintegrate? Well, that's a new one to me. I have never heard that, so I don't know anything about that. I wouldn't think it would cause a problem, but that's just me thinking. What's the most expensive historical significant instrument you've worked on? That's a real good question. I know I've worked on some pretty expensive instruments over the years. I'm honestly not so sure I can answer that. Nothing comes to mind immediately. Chocolate was a very valuable instrument. They paid over $30,000 for it when they bought it. And that's why I also took a lot of heat on my repair methods, because those classically trained violin, builders and makers that charge you 100 times what I charge. And that's not an exaggeration. That's what they charge. They charge 100 times what I charge. And take years and years and years to get your instrument back to you. Yeah, they don't like me. Let's just put it that way. They don't like me at all. Not that much. But that's probably the most expensive instrument I can remember working on. Although I've worked on D45s, and some of those suckers are very expensive now. So I don't know. I wish I had a better answer on that. I really don't. I mean, I've had my own instruments that I've built. I mean, one of them went to, to a 24-time Grammy winner, Carmine D'Amico, and it was in the National Guitar Museum. So maybe my own. Let's see. Trying to find a couple more here. We just got a few more minutes, so let's see if we can get another question or two. I'm real, and I'm a big fan. That's what Toby says. Well, thank you. I'm an even bigger fan of yours, Toby. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. I hope you don't think I'm making fun of you, because I'm not. I am very serious. It's just that you don't know what to believe on the internet these days, and everything can scam you. Oh my gosh. Hey, by the way, let me do a public service announcement here real quick for you. In building my media room, oh man, did I run across some scams here and there. Oh my gosh. If it looks too good to be true, double, triple, quadruple check it, because it probably is too good to be true. Like an example, that big screen TV that I bought, they're like $3,500, and they're not cheap, with that 85-inch deal. And plus the higher technology. This is one of the better ones of the 85 inchers even. So it's an expensive machine, Well, I found the exact same model, everything identical. The ads were exactly the same, $1,700. Oh, come on, that can't be that cheap. And, it wasn't refurbished. It was brand new in the box, the whole thing. It just can't be right. So I start emailing these people, and I just ask them, point out. I said, hey, these things sell for $3,500. I'm assuming this is a spam deal, right? I'm assuming you're a hoax. The next day, that thing was off of the internet. and it appeared back under a different name in a different place. And yeah, it's a scam. So be very, 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 very careful on that kind of stuff. Check their websites, check to make sure they have contact information, do all those kinds of homework before you spend that kind of money on the internet. And that's right, that was on eBay, and eBay is supposed to protect you from that kind of thing. And trust me, it's still out there. So be very, very, very careful. I'll tell you another one. I found another one that I don't exactly call this one a scam. It's just misleading. And that is that the AV receiver that I bought is a fairly expensive unit too. It's like, it's not real expensive as those things go. It's like $350, something like that. Or I think the original retail price was like $500. And this was a little bit older model, so they were selling a lot of them new, old stock for like $350, that kind of thing. Well, I found one a little bit cheaper, and it was out of a place here in Missouri, believe it or not. And it just didn't sound. Again, it sounded too good to be true. So I started questioning the guy, and but the difference was he was responding. So I thought, well, it's got to be legitimate. He's responding, And anyway, come to find out they're being shipped from China, and I had a feeling it was something like that because it was way cheaper than anybody else. So just be real careful when you buy something like that. The time's run out here with my little PSA, but let me see one more question. Are wooden pick guards okay to use? Yeah, and this is Kenneth Innes. Yeah, they're okay to use. I've built them myself. You want to make sure they're thin. It's a double-edged sword. The thinner you make it, the more likely it is that it's going to crack and all that, but you sure don't want to put a 1/4 inch thick wooden pick guard on your instrument. That would not be a good idea. I would be sure that they're in the neighborhood of 70 thousandths or less in thickness. Probably 50 to 70 thousandths in thickness would be okay for a wooden pick guard, but I wouldn't go much thicker than that. Can we email you directly with specific questions? Yes, Gordon, you can, but got to be honest, guys, I get a lot of emails too. I really do. And my email's on my website, rosastringworks@gmail.com. So yeah, you can email me and I will respond eventually. Just be patient. So I just want to say thank you all so much for tuning in this morning. I hope you found this information enlightening. I hope I answered your questions. And thank you, Toby, so much for the contributions. I really, really, really do appreciate it. I'll see you next week, same time, same channel. Thank you.